over the many years, I've come to be able to fall into a much deeper, open silence, which is presence. It wasn't always available to me. I was lost in thought, in emotion, in stories, in pulling back and moving away from, the whole dance of the reactive self. But over time, things changed, and I became more silent, more rooted in the depth of being. Funny thing, I would never have imagined, I would never have thought that I could access this place. In fact, obviously, I had no idea that such a place existed within me. Part of it is just the ongoing movement of aging and maturity. As you go around the wheel many times, one starts to notice, if there's a willingness, one starts to notice certain patterns that keep coming round. And if there is the willingness to see those patterns and to not continue them, then things start to change. Add to that the whole of the cathartic, transformational, healing, spiritual, energetic journey that I've been on. And it transpires that by and by there's not much left to fight against. There's not much left to react to. There's not much left to resolve. There's not much there to antagonize the mind-body system. The reactive self is dissolved. Still there's a human life lived. Of course there's a human life lived. So there's still that interaction with the temporal world filled with impermanence, filled with things that don't go according to plan. But there's a much greater flexibility, a much greater equanimity and calmness that comes about. And in my own journey, there was a lot of catharsis. I had to do a lot of catharsis. And I don't think we are aware of that oftentimes on the spiritual journey of transformation these days. Often it can't be resolved by just, inquiry or awareness or talking or thinking or meditating. All of these aspects are valuable. Every aspect that brings us closer or more intimate or resolves things more and more is of great value. And sometimes catharsis is great. By catharsis, I would mean shaking up the mind-body system in a held environment. To find out what that means is that, is that bodywork, cathartic bodywork? Is that a kind of rebirthing? Is that breath is very powerful and always held in with most people. It's how we control some of our inner world through the breath, which becomes shallow. And so the breath needs to sort of be released, and that releasing is a cathartic, energetic releasing. So that's a very powerful thing. In my own life there was of course a lot of detoxification, which was extremely powerful. I did fasting, did a long water fast and short water fasts. I did the panchakarmas, the Ayurvedic panchakarmas that stir up and remove all of the toxins and poisons from the body and from the liver and from the places that it's buried in the system. And of course, as you do that, all of the emotional connectedness, all of the hidden emotions come with it, because the body and the emotions are intrinsically linked, directly connected together. So all of those holistic modalities really help, They don't bring about awakening, but they clear the path, and they forge one, they clear the way. And and then there's a need for us to speak our truth, to speak our wounds, to speak our hurt, not blabbing them out in all sorts of unconscious, reactive, crazy ways, but in ways that are truthful, in ways that are honest, in ways in which they're heard by us primarily, but maybe by another as well. The healing power of the voice. And to attend to all of the kind of inner chakra system, from the root chakra, the very base, the sex centers, the primal centers, through the emotional center into the heart center, so that these areas of life, these energy vortexes of life, start to move again as they're supposed to. We're intended in many ways to be harmonic creatures with these spiraling energy systems within us that connect us to the ground, to the presence of the ground, and connect us to the heavens above us, to the stars that we come from. But no, through the very density of the human experience, we end up, disconnected from the roots and disconnected from the heavens. So we walk around in this kind of alienated way, lost, rooted in separation, fundamental belief in our separation from the earth and from the heavens, both of which are our roots, are the ground of our being. We walk around disconnected, alienated, separated from the ground and the heavens, and from each other, and from ourselves, and from our body. No wonder we feel so terrible and alienated. Wow. But it really doesn't have to be like that, and it's not such an enormous these days. Back 100 years ago or 50 years ago, these conversations weren't being had, but now these conversations are being had. And if the conversations are being had, it means that access is much more possible. Deepening is much more possible. Healing is much more possible. Re-establishing, reintegrating the rootedness through presence, through our base, to the earth, to the ground, to nature, life, and the connectedness to the heavens above us that are also our home. Much more possible now, but information itself doesn't cut it. Information itself doesn't do it. There has to be the work. There has to be the work. The path is the path. This is the path. Sometimes attending to the body, the emotional body, the subtle energy body, the cathartic body, the toxic body. Sometimes attending to the emotions. Sometimes sitting in silence as things arise, like Buddha. As things arise, as the maras of our discomfort arise. Not to be fought with, not to be denied, not to be battled with, but just simply to be allowed to come up with knowing that we're not that. But held with love, with a benevolence, benevolent detachment. I've called things many times, and I love that term. because it means that we're detached from it, but that detachment is not cold. That detachment is compassionate, benevolent, unconditional, as though we are the vast mother, as the children who are wayward and in pain, and troubled and fearful and angry, who are rising up in us, and we're there, benevolent detachment. So sometimes we need to be quiet, sometimes we need to be prayerful, sometimes we need to catharsis. We never forget our humanity.